Yeah.
Dead in the middle of little did we know.
I'm serious about mine. I'm so sincere.
Now at last I have seen a judgment of Solomon.
Welcome to Thought Crimes, everyone. This is your girl, Sincere.
And this is your man, Prince Solomon. We're going to be talking about future Hall of Fame Super Bowl winner Travis Scott. Stated that Mike Brown's situation was the end result purely based on his consequences. And for the most part, that he had been irritated and agitated that so-called black people were coming off as fake activists, and did not necessarily clarify what he meant by fake activists, but we're going to go ahead and get into it. So, Sincere, one thing we know about Travis Scott is that he doesn't do many interviews, and we can actually see why. I'm sure even when interviews had been floating around, the bad ones such as this one here, I'm sure his publicist, his PR team, they're kind of like, we want to clean these types of things up because at some point in time, they may float back up to the surface, as we see now, given the fact that he has the opportunity to perform at the upcoming Super Bowl. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to make it clear. Travis Scott is a hot topic to talk about, so this is an old interview being drugged up to trend. Nonetheless, we will still talk about it because it needs to be talked about since it's trending anyway. Pertaining to Travis Scott and his interview, this is what I mean by people who don't do research, who's not astute enough to be talking on certain issues. You're not someone who understands the policies of Missouri. You don't understand that it's one of the most segregated states in the United States. You don't comprehend of what's going on with the police structure over there, where you have a lot of police officers that unlawfully stop black citizens and also give them tickets. So there is a lot of civil forfeitures going on in Missouri. There's a lot of violence on black bodies in Missouri. You had a hard-working man, Henry Lewis, who was just coming home from work, made a little wrong turn, was trying to get back home, got beat up to a bloody pulp by police officers. He bled on their uniform, and when he sued them, the police officers countersued and won because they said he bled on their uniform, and they also committed perjury. But of course, the court system in Missouri is really skewed against black people. So for you to automatically assume that Darren Wilson has no accountability, or that Michael Brown somehow automatically is in the wrong, where you still don't even know the context of what took place that night, or that day, when a teenager was shot dead in the street and Darren Wilson has no bruises on him. That's really is horrible for you to even say that.
Well, what it does add to the conversation of Mike Brown, Darren Wilson, what we see happening out there is more confusion and more people fascinated with their own opinion. Look, Travis Scott is an entertainer. And to be honest with you, as far as the Super Bowl situation goes, if he wants to get his money, he should get his money. But what people will come to find out, this is very important. I think this is actually beautiful that we get a chance to see this. People were placing something on Travis Scott greater than where his mindset could be, even when we were talking about politics. Whether we're talking about black politics, if we're talking about geopolitics, just politics in general. When Michael B. Jordan said, we got to stick together. I don't think he should do it. I hope he doesn't do it. He got to stand up for us. Everybody else was placing this cross and this burden on this boy's back. And here's my thing about it. That's all fine if the person had chosen to stand on that particular square. Travis Scott, I'll be honest with you, he's obviously a hippie entertainer. When I listened to him and they were asking him, what do you think about what happened with Mike Brown? he immediately went into the conversation about consequences. Now, we're not disregarding consequences. Consequences are what they are. But at the same time, his thoughts were befuddled. He was unfocused. He was not clear. He went from consequences to bring it back to hip hop about rappers misleading children. Then it went into, what Kanye West did. The reason why it's important for people to pay attention to this is that these particular type of entertainers are who they are. They're simply entertainers. The Weeknd says, please don't approach me with that. I just want to sing about cocaine. I want to make my music and dance around and be a silly, happy hippie. Same thing with Travis Scott. Some of these people are who they are, simply entertainers. You know, until you get a situation where you may get a rapper or you may get a singer who may have some of that Sister Souljah energy, who may have some of that Michelle Alexander energy, who may have some of that Dead Prez energy, then you should focus on that. But from what I can see with Travis Scott, it's clear that for the most part, he's a hippie. He's into grunge music. He's into Sid Vicious. He's into all of that type of music. He wants to call himself doing quote unquote white rock, even though it originated in black space, but white rock for black kids. And he has a colorblind theory when it comes to the approach of the world, but not necessarily when it comes to black folks. So for me personally, looking at Travis Scott in this interview, it just harkens to the fact that some people are placing their bets on the wrong horse with the likes of Travis Scott.
And he's just not moved by it. Even The Weeknd dropped his contract with H&M when he felt the coolest monkey on the block was an insult to the psyche and the intelligence of the young black boy that was in that particular marketing campaign. So some people at some point in time, even though they really are just about music or being a blipster or being a hippie, there are some things that make them move. It's kind of like Ray Charles did not want to get involved with any race issues. But when he found out that the audience was being divided by race, and he heard, the people in his community saying, come on, Ray, what are you going to do? Ray was like, all right, you know what? I don't like this. This should not be the case. These people paid hard-earned money to come see me. We got to do something about that. So sometimes you'll get people to budge on certain things. Travis Scott, the NFL is something that is just not important enough in his mind for him to budge. And then some of the people who are pressuring him didn't budge fast enough as well. I mean, remember, Diddy and Meek Mill was at the Super Bowl pertaining to the Eagles when they won. And some people could say, well, how can you tell Travis Scott not to go on that stage and perform when you guys were at the Super Bowl? Now, I know after the campaign where Kaepernick started, we've seen a consistency from the Carters of not getting involved with the NFL. Jay-Z was offered to perform at halftime, and he declined, which is why they got Justin Timberlake to perform instead. But at the same time, some people will say, before you made that move in solidarity, and before you had that change of heart, and before Kaepernick kneeled on that field, you guys still profited from deals with the NFL. Beyonce with Pepsi, Beyonce having that great halftime performance with Bruno Mars, and for some people, they will be like, well, it's understandable for Travis Scott to make that choice of still performing at halftime, wanting to get that money, and also wanting to perform in front of a large audience. Now, even though I disagree with it, and I do think that black people have to care more about dignity than money, I am not Travis Scott. And going back to Michael Brown real quick, it's really, really, really irresponsible for people like Ebro, before he became half woke, to ask questions like that. Have Travis Scott half answered in a careless manner, and nobody go further in depth pertaining to a very serious issue about the prison industrial complex, black children, teenagers being gunned down and killed by the system, Even if we're talking about what's taking place with lead poisoning in Newark, New Jersey, we are hearing reports right now. For example, Chicago, New Orleans. It's happening all across the United States. So you can't be careless and just have a soundbite when it comes to politics, and it also comes to human life.
Asking Travis Scott right there in the middle of the interview, to be honest with you, it is irresponsible. Travis Scott is not that type of artist. He's never projected himself to be as such. I know people are going to get mad at him. That's fine. You have your right to be mad at a rapper / singer. If you want to hold them to a greater standard than your local city councilman or your mayor or your governor, but fine. If that person means more to you, all right, whatever. As far as the Super Bowl situation, I'm not really all interested in the fight of it at this point, to be honest with you, because I've seen hypocrisies on both sides. Robert Kraft was touted as basically the hero for the likes of Meek Mill, in assistance with the likes of Jay-Z. Beyonce gave one of the top performances at the Super Bowl during halftime. And everybody pretty much has made their money. Everybody's had their moment. So now it's kind of like, let's fall back. It's cool. It's in trend to not perform at the Super Bowl. Remember, at one time, in all areas of music, especially mainstream music, the Super Bowl, it was cool to perform at the Super Bowl. Now the season changed. So now it's Travis Scott, don't perform at the Super Bowl. Jermaine Dupri don't have anything to do with the Super Bowl. But you all still always have artists associated with the Super Bowl, whether there's a cultural trend of quote unquote boycotting the Super Bowl. Travis Scott, to be honest with you, there's really no interest for him to not perform at the Super Bowl. By all accounts, how he's conducted his interview, saying of wanting to aspire to be the next biggest star or bigger than Kanye, this is right up his alley. And I think it would be more than likely hard for him to kind of digest everybody's criticism, whether he's on the phone in private conversations with Jay-Z and Jay-Z's telling him no. But Travis Scott in the back of his head is probably thinking about the Beyonce Super Bowl performance. Not saying he's on the equivalency of her, but these questions would be brought up. This might happen if somebody had these opportunities. But from what I can see, as it stands right now, Travis Scott is Travis Scott. All right. His conversations, his dissertations, his commentary on politics is about as useful as Young Thug. All I can say is he makes decent music. That's about it. I wouldn't look into him for anything else. But at the same time, though, I wouldn't use his mindless retorts and some of his opinions to excuse the deaths of little black boys and girls and any people who is sensibly murdered at the hands of a prison industrial complex or a paramilitary police regime that has been moving around on this country. So on one hand, I say fall back on the whole Travis Scott and all of these rappers. A lot of these rappers are not your politicians, but then at the same time, do not co-sign a lot of their mindless opinions about very important political issues that require nuanced commentary. Again, so it's all about having balance, not too high, not too low. You have to look at things for what they are. Travis Scott, again, opinions on politics, race, and the death of Mike Brown is about as useful as Young Thug's. And I really mean that 100%. And I think people should be focusing on those people like the Brian Stevensons, those people that are active in the community, and some of these other people who are extremely aware about what's taking place.
Yeah, everybody, you can follow us on YouTube, of course, Thought Crimes. You can subscribe to our channel. We also have our Patreon called Thought Crimes, where you can check out exclusive live streams where we give you the inside look into our minds and also into the brand of Thought Crimes. We also have Instagram, Thought Crimes 1984 on Instagram. On Twitter is Thought_Crimes. And also we are on Facebook as well, and our own website, www.thoughtcrimesworld.com. And one last thing before we close this out. From this point on, I think everyone should know that it's just a persona or facade with Travis Scott. I don't want to see any more articles or write-ups talking about how he's for black people or anything silly like that. after, especially what we just said there, what he just said, and also what Prince just stated. Peace.
Yeah.
Dead in the middle of little did we know.
I'm serious about mine. I'm so sincere.
Now at last I have seen a judgment of Solomon.